He is known by many names, but the Dark Lord Sauron leads his Black Orcs out of Mordor. And in this video today, we're going to recreate that exact faction in Age of Wonders 4 as another one of my faction builds. Now, if you want to suggest any other faction builds that maybe you've gone with, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. And of course, this is more of a general guideline on how to make something that is super, random, right? Like Lord of the Rings doesn't have a whole bunch of magic to really pull from to really justify this, but we're just kind of going with a general theme. So if there's some things in this that you kind of decide to yourself, hey, I'd build this a whole entirely different way, go ahead, go absolutely about it and do that. I just, again, want to provide you with a kind of a bit of a skeleton or a little bit of a blueprint on how to create this really fun faction that I think can actually be extremely strong too when you try to add up a lot of the tomes we're going to go with a lot of Materium and a lot of chaos affinity stuff. So that is going to be our focus here. You can jump to any part of the video that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. So you're going to jump to stuff like the actual faction creation or the tome discussion, whatever it is. Also, if you've not yet picked up Age of Wonders 4, you can do so using the Nexus Store link in my description and pinned comment. You'll get a Steam key directly from the developer, and it is a great way to support the channel. Lastly, if you do want to jump in and watch any of the playthroughs that we've been doing, the single player playthroughs of Age of Wonders 4, I do that on my Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Find that link also, description and pinned comment, all that fun jazz. Let's get started here on how to create Sauron in Age of Wonders 4. So jumping into faction creation, we're going to start with our form. Now, we're going to go with a Wizard King for the origin of the ruler. So that means that the form is not going to be the person we're playing as. It's going to be rather what character we are going to, what the race will look like. So we're going to go with Orcs, and we're going to go with both strong and ferocious, which is actually just right on point because that is exactly how the book describes the Uruks, the Black Orcs of Mordor, as being both strong and ferocious. Now, you could try to go with a different thing here. I think strong is really the good one here because it's giving us damage, but ferocious, you could go with something like overwhelm tactics to kind of resemble the hordes of orcs that descended upon the people of Middle Earth. You could even go with tenacious, but that's a little bit more along the lines of being damage mitigation, right? Damage penalties from casualties are halved, so you are still doing more damage as you lose units. But I think ferocious is a really good one because you can really do a lot of things to add to the damage profile on this. So pretty much just clicking Orcs is your starting point. It's going to have both your mind and your body traits locked in. Now, for the culture, we're definitely going to go dark, and the big reason behind that is of Cull the weak mechanic, that we are taking that advantage of doing more damage to weakened units. The regeneration thing is kind of a nice bonus, but I think thematically it fits, and even armor-wise it fits. So it's and they ride wargs, so it's there. It's perfect for us. So we'll select that. Now, for our society traits, we're going to go with Scions of Evil because, you know what, it makes sense. Also, too, you are dealing with a lot of draft and Imperium. You're getting a lot of bonuses towards your Empire development, and you're making a lot of units. That is very Sauron-ish, I suppose. Now, again, you're taking a look at a faction that doesn't deal heavily with magic like this game does, so you kind of have to take some liberties here and there. Now, for your other things, you can do stuff like Great Builders. Sauron was very heavily associated with building an enchantment and bringing things up from the earth. Him and Morgoth are from the earth as far as their kind of principal focus. So this can actually work pretty well for you. And even though this builder thing talks about being a form of society of builders and makers who take pride in things that construct, I'm looking at it more from the RP perspective of industry, an overwhelming industry, quarries yielding gold and production increases. That's how I'm looking at that. But I think if we're taking a look at it from a thematic standpoint, ruthless raiders really does also make a lot of sense too. Kind of dips us a little bit into chaos as well, so it does really do some wonders here. Now, I think Tome of Souls is what people probably would expect. I'm going to take this route, but I don't really think that Shadow Affinity makes much sense for Sauron. Now, even though Sauron is called the Necromancer in the Hobbit books, and the Nazgul are, for all intents and purposes, undead, they're wraiths, I'm going to focus more on things like pyromancy and things like enchantment. So I think starting with either enchantment or pyromancy are two very good routes. And like I've said too, when you're looking at this, you kind of have to look at it through the scope of trying to not do over-the-top sweeping spells, which you do definitely get with pyromancy. I don't think Horde is particularly the route. Spawnkin, I think it kind of changes the overall focus of this faction. But I'm going to go with enchantment here because I like a lot of the benefits from enchantment. And it makes a lot of sense that maybe Sauron would do some sort of cool, crazy enchantments and stuff like that for arrows and swords. I'm allowing that kind of like mental leeway or that mental leap. I find it a little bit harder to do. Like, it's definitely not nature, right? Because that's like the antithesis. He hated things from the natural realm, so I wouldn't think of that. Zeal kind of has its place, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And Souls, I think, is a little bit too deeply into the undead route. And Evocation and Warding, I think there's too many things that are contrary to the way that I would approach this build. So we're going to go with Tome of the Rock, Wizard King for sure, and we're going to build us out a elf, basically. I need to change my head so I don't know what the hell I'm making here. Okay, cool. And we're going to go with an elf, and we're just, because a lot of the forms, Sauron took a ton of different forms, right? But the predominant one that we see him as is an elf. So that's what we'll be going as, is just basically an elf. Something kind of wild here. Nothing crazy, and I do not like that physique. That is not a physique for me. Going big burly guy, because it'll change once we put all the armor on. Like that. Now, if you saw the thumbnail and everything to this point, it might be kind of frustrating for you if you did not do the newsletter sign up. That happened as kind of like a pre-order bonus almost. So I'll show you what I'm going to do armor wise. God, his face looks just miserable. Good lord. It won't matter in a second here anyway. And we will go with the white hair. That kind of fits into him, right? And got that head is Poncy. That is a Poncy Sauron. Oh! God, that scared the crap out of me. That's why I don't play horror games on the channel. Okay. Yeah, that is a mean mugging Sauron right there. And then outfit, we're going to go with definitely something like this. Kind of similar to my Vlad Dracula that I did. And then we need spikes and a leather cape, basically. And this is kind of it. That is Sauron. So, I mean, you can stop right there if you want to use Sauron in his kind of quote-unquote elf form, right? But if you were lucky enough to do it, and you have the helmet, here it is. That is like your Sauron helmet. This comes from signing up on the newsletter. If you did not do that at the beginning of the game, in its pre-order kind of stages, I don't know if they're ever going to release this again, or if you can do it after the fact. But that is the kind of stance we're going to take. Black, unfortunately orange, but then there's too many fitting symbols here that really work. When I first did this, the symbol was already, you can go with this one, you can go with this one. They fit just too well, and you have got Sauron here, right? Big, tall, huge, scary Sauron, minus like the purple pinkish baubles. And the same thing here we'll do with our race. Big old burly orcs. Go as big as I can. And I mean, we don't have like a tried and true black skin color to make them like really like, you have just like a lot of like off grays. And I can show you how we'll make them like tried and true Mordor Black Orcs. And this can be true if you're trying to do any kind of Warhammer Black Orcs too. I'll show you that. If I go something like this, it's almost like a teal. It won't really matter. We're gonna change the skin through a race transformation anyway. Okay, we'll go there. And then armor color, nice good old black armor color, hair color, there we go. And mount type we want to keep on those wargs. So we're going to jump over here. Now, the title, press this little button, and we're going to change this to Dark Lord. And it's just Sauron. Now, I've named them Barak Uruk, which is Black Orc in Darkspeak. You can just go with Uruk, whatever you want. You can go ahead and just press onwards. Let's jump into the game now to talk about tomes and some other little things on how to make this faction really come to life. So I booted this game up and just went a couple turns forward to talk about this section. We barely have anything unlocked, but let's go over to the Materium first. So we started with Materium with the Tome of Enchantment. And remember, we need 2 Tier 1 tomes to progress it with the Tier 2 tome. Now, you can go very heavily into Materium if you want. I look at the one of Enchantment as very on brand for Sauron. But I think as you start to get really into it with the Tome of Terramancy and these over-the-top sweeping explosion and earth-shattering spells for the Tome of the Creator, tectonic shatter and stuff like that, it doesn't feel as like kind of thematic to me. It doesn't feel as thematic to me as the realm of Lord of the Rings and the wind and the magic it all pulls from. But it's definitely a route that you can take. So don't feel discouraged if you want to go that route with your Sauron build. But what I would say is go heavier into Chaos, because you do need 2 tier 1 tomes. If your next tome is Tome of Pyromancy, I think it plays really well. You don't need to get searing arrows or searing blades or fiery arrows because you've already gotten buffs from the previous one, which is just fine. But Immolate, Ignite, Pyromancer, Summon Lesser Magma Spirit, those things all kind of play really well together. But then when you move into Tome of Revelry, I think you start to really get into this essence of this Dark Lord who causes a lot of mayhem and mischief and destruction and a lot of morale shattering and raiding and all these things, and a lot of it comes in Tome of Revelry here. Revels of Carnage, units friendly gain 30% experience. Reveler's Heart helps out with morale. Revels of Blood, even Blood Fury weapons helps out with morale and strengthening, so you can get a lot of cool things here. Scald maybe not as much, but I mean at that point who really cares. Tome of Mayhem too is really cool. Curse of Misfortune, you're starting to give things misfortune, and you kind of think of how he placed himself in the realm and how he led to all of these pullings of the strings of all these different races throughout time, right? With the Rings of Power, with the Numenorians, all this stuff. So you can get a lot of cool stuff from the Tomes of Chaos that I really like. In the Tome of Pandemonium here, I think this is a really a hard get, because you get Mass Hysteria, inflicts random status effects, Havoc Magic, base chance of inflicting a random negative status effect, Incite Revolution, that's huge, spawns a brigand camp, loses a border province, and the population is lost for an enemy city. So think of it like just sacking Osgiliath, right? Like you get a lot of really fun stuff from this. It's really playing and wreaking havoc on an enemy's ability to hold provinces, to have endless pressure from a lot of random little military units, and to really destroy morale. This big one here, Vessels of Chaos, is how you turn your orcs into proper Black Orcs. I'll show you here once we press the proper button. I'll show it off. But this is a really, really good one that I think is extremely thematic. In the Tome of Devastation, get War Breed, these huge constructs, unleash the Warhounds for a siege project, construct Devastator Spheres. I mean, if you could name this thing, what's his name? Not Grom, Grong or whatever the hell. The big Grond, the big ram that is actually named after, oh my god, it's named after something in Morgoth's army, and I can't think off the top of my head. But still, you get a lot of really cool stuff. Focus of Devastation here, grants magic attacks with the enchanted unit. Demolisher, which allows them to destroy fortified obstacles. Very just on brand, and I love it so much. And you get the Demon Gate, which is a little wild. In my opinion, if you're sticking thematically, don't get Demonkin. It turns all of your orcs into demons. If you want to just take this idea, then run with it and maybe say that, yeah, they do become demons, go with that. Just by all means, go hard in the paint on it. Then you get the Tome of the Chaos Channeling. Again, more stuff of just kind of going crazy. Scion of Flame is a really good minor race transformation. It's really going to help us out in the general aesthetic. I'll show off in just a little second here. Gremlin Ambushers, which is just so fun. Up to 5 gremlins can be spawned per battle. But the big one here is Tome of the Chaos Lord. I think no tome strikes true to a servant of Morgoth than the Tome of the Chaos Lord, because you get to summon a Balrog. I mean Baelor. That is so crucial. Demonic Onslaught here is awesome. All attacking units get killing momentum and hastened. Incite Rebellion. It's just so drippy and thematic, and I absolutely love it. Because lastly, you get Call Forth Avatar of Chaos. That is just, it is 100% the exact vibe and fit that I would want with Big Daddy Sauron. And you get a lot of really cool things here too, right? Like I've discredited them by not talking about them, but you have plenty of hero abilities that come with each one of these tomes. And jumping heavier and heavier into the Chaos Affinity, I think is really good when we take a look at the Empire development in just a second here. So you can really see how this gets to be a lot of fun as you go through it. And I think, like I said too, you don't need to stick with the Sauron theme beyond a certain point. You maybe go, you know what? This was cool to this point, but now I'm going to go off the rails. Let's go over here to this button, press this button, set this to the Dark Culture, set these to Orcs, and we'll just look at the Night Guard. So, again, skip the major race transformation, because I said, you know, this turns into Demonkin. Not very Sauron, no, is it? But you go Vessels of Chaos. Like, look at that. That is great, because you add into it Scion of the Flame, and boom, there you go. Like, there you go. It is so good. You can have a lot of like Reveler's Hearts on here and stuff like that to turn the armor even more black, which is really sick. But you can see that this is, I think, in my opinion, probably the best way to create. What did I do? I forgot that Vessels of Reveler's Heart does the the legs, where you turn them into what's it called? Not fawns, but satyrs. Turn them into satyrs, which is wild. But maybe don't do Reveler's Heart. I forgot about the satyr legs on that. But you get how this really pulls that imagery together here. If you do want to see what that looks like, there you go. If you want to go into the demons, you definitely can do it. But this gives you the chance to really create a Black Orcs from Mordor, an Uruk army if you so wish. And if you want, you can take this and make it Saruman and go Uruk-hai and change that overall aesthetic. I would say maybe go into some different things all the way around. But just to kind of go back into our discussion on tomes, since we've talked about doing Chaos and Materium, I do want to say there are some other routes you can take. Nature Affinity, like I said, he abhorred all things in nature, but the Tome of Vigor does allow you to have super growth, which is cool, but I don't think it's worth the heavy jump into that direction. Another really good one, though, is still Order. Because the Tome of Zeal is like, it's not necessarily good, you know, like a lot of this is like over the top fascism, like Inquisition style, right? Tome of the Inquisition, it's not necessarily good, but I think once you get to like Tome of Subjugation, even more so, the Tyrant Knight can have a real cool place in the army. The Intimidating Aura, there's a lot of these things that I think when you look at Order, you think of it, oh, this is good and proper aligned and stuff like that. But I still think that the cool thing about Order Affinity is that you can draw an evil thread out of it. And I think that that's still a cool way you could go with this. Keep in mind too, you know, Chaos and Order do oppose one another, which doesn't matter for your own empire. It does for external empires and free cities. But really quickly now, let's jump real fast here into empire development. And this is a tree that you really don't need to worry about, but I just kind of want to further illustrate my point here. There's a lot of really cool things between these two trees, which are the two tomes that I'm focusing on the most. A lot of stuff like defeating the infestation grants you a better thing. That's cool and all, but units cost less upkeep. Gold per unit tier of units killed in combat. Those are two really good ones. It kind of fits that rating thematic that we've already kind of established. The Rites of War instantly summons a bandit army. I mean, that's again like, oh, maybe you summon people from the land of Rune, you know, like you have a lot of things that you could kind of draw parallels to as far as how Sauron wasn't just simply using orcs to attack the realms of Gondor or men in general. You know, that he pulled the strings and machinations of a bunch of different other human races to actually do things against them. So pillaging, a lot of that stuff's in here. Raising cities. Cities gain an additional draft to make more units, force march costing less, raising cities yielding more, destined conquer, so grievances against all empires, these cannot be traded or lost, reign of destruction, and then rite of progression, your throne city loses population but immediately summons a Balor with power from slaughter. Permanently gains 1 hit point and gains 1% damage when killing an enemy unit, so it gets constantly stronger and stronger and stronger. It's just a really cool idea. And Materium has a really cool line here as well. A lot of cool stuff with provinces and province improvements and outposts. Cities share a border with their throne city. They gain additional income. But this little sick thing, Breastplate of the Champion, grants champion melee attack damage, grants critical chance with melee attacks and defense. It kind of depends on how you want to take this. But I definitely think that you're going to have a lot of fun with this playthrough, especially because you get such a heavy, hard-hitting army that gets a ton of additional stuff. Because when you look at all of these tomes together, like when you take a look at a lot of the stuff from Chaos, it's just the ability to summon a lot of different things onto the battlefield. Gremlins, sure, whatever. But like you look at the Chaos Eater's a really, really good unit. And Tome of Devastation, where you can just completely take out something when you're trying to siege it, with the Warbreed being just an absolute monster in and of itself. The Demon Gate has a lot of fun things. Abyssal Flames transforms terrain into desolate terrain, except mountain and ocean terrain, deals 10 damage to enemies. I mean, you're just literally creating the realm of Mordor with that one, which is just so fucking cool. Where's the other one here? Is it Golden Horde? Yeah, summon a full army of random non-scout tier 1 units that can be produced in a city on the target hex. Tome of the Horde, I think, also has that too, summon irregulars. Yeah, summons a random non-scout tier 1 unit. I mean, that still can be used in the same kind of scope. I just think that there's so much fun that's pulled from Chaos Affinity for your Dark Lord Sauron. So if you have any other recommendations for how you would approach this build, or maybe, you know, hey, I did my Riders of Rohan and here's how I did it, or here's another fantastical race. I'm going to start maybe diving into some with Elder Scrolls and other fun things here and there. What I have kind of found when I'm trying to conceptualize these videos is there's a lot of races that aren't overwhelmingly magic using races, or magic using things. Like I was trying to do Grey Wardens from Dragon Age, but then I realized maybe I'm just creating paladins with a certain specific aesthetic in mind. So I found that it's actually a lot trickier than I thought it would be. I can't wait for the next DLC to come out for this game to basically create Lizardmen from Warhammer, but a lot of really fun options are on the table here for Age of Wonders 4. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.